Welcome back to the Isn't That Rich podcast. I'm your host, Jill Franks.
I'm your host, Ashley McVicker.
And I'm Jared Cravat.
And we are talking today about our brand new book club that we decided to host for 2026. And the reason we've done this is, we can talk all day about finances, but we're not the experts in all these different topics. And so we thought, what better way for us to learn and keep our information fresh than to read ourselves some fun books on finance. So our first book that we discussed this year was Rich Girl Nation by Katie Gatti Tassin. And
Jill loves her.
So she has this podcast, and actually she just ended the podcast. She did this since 2018. She had this podcast, but I learned a lot of what I know about finance from listening to her podcast, and she released this book in 2025, and I was like, okay, I want to read it, but better time than now to do that. So sorry, Jared, it is really geared towards women, but I thought it would be kind of cool.
No, there's a lot of things that I was like, that was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
I'll share about
Here's
that
the deal.
too,
Money is a gender-neutral topic.
Right.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
This is just a woman talking about it and talking about a lot of things that women deal with when it comes to the financial sector.
Right.
So I am interested to hear your opinions about things.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
But Jared's been so funny. He's like, look at me reading Rich Girl Nation.
I'm a feminist now.
I'm like, the system. No, but really, it's really
you guys
amazing.
Have to pay so much
hearing
for
her
hair.
talk about the system. Anyways, we'll get into it.
Yeah. So I thought we would just start today kind of going chapter by chapter, because I got a lot out of each section, especially some of the topics we've already discussed on this podcast, but even learning more about them was really interesting. So
Shall we begin with the first chapter?
Start with the first chapter.
It's called The Hot Girl Hamster Wheel. What do you know about the Hot Girl Hamster Wheel, Jared?
I actually love the hot girl hamster wheel. Surprisingly enough, I felt like I could relate to
More
the hot
than
girl
me.
hamster wheel more than it.
Jared's actually on the hot girl hamster wheel.
I realized I'm definitely on the
You're
hot
the
girl
hot girl.
hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And we had a podcast episode where we talked about like our spending on like
Beauty products.
beauty
Or
products. I was saying, actually, I spent more than you.
spend. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so the
Still do,
Hot Girl
probably.
Hamster Wheel is basically like this system, if you will, that we've been thrown on as women to constantly be purchasing beauty products to add excess to who we are, whether that is makeup, spray tan, nails, jewelry,
Yes.
clothes,
Hair color.
Exactly.
fitness programs. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it is a billion-dollar industry
Yeah.
specifically targeted on women, telling them that they need these things to be more beautiful and better off.
And I highlighted this section, and it said the average American woman spends $3,756 per year on beauty. The figure for men who reported regularly spending money on their appearance was $2,928 per year. So essentially $1,000 more per year just on beauty products is crazy. And then she talked about like, okay, so we're essentially spending $800 more on beauty products, while men have $800 more to invest in different things. So they're over a lifetime, that amount of investment was astronomical difference. I think it was like over $1 million more invested from that $800 that they
Has to be.
saved. So
That was like an interesting perspective to think about it in the sense of
yeah,
investing in that. Because I think we just see that number of like, oh, it's more. But we don't think about like if men were investing the $800.
yeah, that women are spending on beauty
Yes.
products, how much further they're already ahead in their retirements, right?
Well, and we don't think enough about, I love to talk about this. Maybe you don't spend money here, or you do spend money here, and that's the end of the conversation. It's your money's always getting spent somewhere. And so you need to figure out where you want to direct that to make the biggest bang for your buck for yourself.
Right.
I thought it was really interesting when she talked about like how this came to be too, like how our sense of beauty has changed so much over the years. So like it started by like back in the Victorian era for women, it was you wanted to be pale skinned, and how the beauty the things that are popular now has changed now. You want to be tan because that shows that you live a life of luxury and you get to be on vacation more. So if you have like a tan skin, that's why everybody's spending money on being blonde and tan now compared to what they used to be. So
yeah, and she lived in Dallas. She might still live in Dallas, but she talks about just like the circles she ran in and how she almost had this feeling of if she didn't do these things, she wasn't worthy to be in these circles that she was with, or even if you didn't look like your friend that had blonde hair or have the things that they have or have the same perfume as they have, and keeping up with the Joneses. It's essentially keeping up with the Joneses
For sure.
is what it is. It's just the beauty standards of it. So she kind of did a detox.
Yeah, I think what you did with your non-essential spend was similar to that in a way, just not with beauty products, but really.
Well, it was because I would never go out and, not that I get spray tans regularly or nail. I'm actually pretty low maintenance. Now I'm thinking about it, but those things are not essential. Those things are not essential.
Correct.
So I think she like stopped coloring her hair.
Yeah.
And just started adding all this stuff up, and she was like, "This is ridiculous."
Her natural
She like
blonde.
No, I think she did it for this experiment. Yeah.
So Jared's been cracking me up about the cover of this because he's like, I know that jumpsuit's got to be from Anthropology.
I go, that's an Aura ring. Just kidding. No.
She can definitely afford it now that she has a New York Times bestseller. So good for you, girl.
Yeah. Well, she also talked about like the pretty privilege too. Where like when you stop doing those things that women, or like she talked about like, so women with a bachelor degree and had a body mass index of above 30 earned 12% less on average than her thinner colleagues, which is pretty crazy to see. And that's men also see some of that too. I think it was only like 5% less than their thinner coworkers, which even that, people look at women in the workplace, and if you're overweight or you don't take some of these beauty things to heart or take them seriously, you're going to see that in your income, which is sad. But 12% compared to 5%, like people care about how women look more, I guess.
People that wear makeup, like statistically speaking, they get paid more money. So I'm like, oh, I got to put the makeup on.
Yeah.
But see, that's the interesting thing about this, because, she does talk about the system as well. Like there's this, you can cut all those things, but there's a system in place that like reinforces or rewards
Those
you
things.
giving into the system.
Yeah, it's like now that you've done this, now
if
there's
you decide
a
to
discipline.
like protest that and not give into the system, then you're losing maybe just as much, if not more money.
Yeah.
So it's like this robbing from.
Right. So do you dye the hair and get the paycheck?
But really, that's like. That's kind of a thing. Like we work in a field where we have to dress professionally. We have to look professionally. We have to spend our money on that. We don't have an option, right?
Yeah.
If we don't, we could, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like people don't trust us with their money. We dress professionally because we want to come off as professional. We're in a financial place.
That's our culture.
So if we look sloppy or if we look like we don't care, we may lose business.
Right. People think, well, if you don't care about your appearance, why would you care about my money?
That's so good.
Right.
So
Food for thought. Anyway.
So there's some truth in here.
So jumping off the hamster wheel might not be an option for us.
So it looks like we're all going to Ulta after this. You guys really should, if you haven't listened to our beauty episode. It's a couple
good
ways
one.
back, but it's pretty funny.
I'm a little ashamed of it, but
Jared
it is what
like,
it is.
yeah, this. And Jill's like,
I
yeah,
spent way too much money.
$1,000 moisturizer. Okay.
No, I do not. But yeah, it's a quarter of that. But yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, she also talks like kind of what you just said. She said, well, sure, it's better for everyone if everyone stopped doing that, but that's not going to happen. So like, where do you find the balance? And I guess the balance is where when you're spending more than you are making, and your investing suffers, then that's probably where you should draw the line. Like, so you're going to spend more on this than investing.
Well, she talked about how much she spent on just like getting her nails done every week, which I was actually shocked. I'm like, girls spend that much money on getting their nails done every week?
Like $60.
Like, yeah, I'm sure like you can still maybe do something like that's an alternative that's a lot cheaper. And so that's maybe the I think the tool to take away is like, how can you still look professional, look respectable, but maybe cut costs in ways. Maybe you're buying secondhand or those kinds of
Maybe
things.
your spray tan costs $40 at the Versus Spa, but if you come to me, I do it for 10.
Or you just put on sunscreen and don't do the tan.
Yeah.
Or you do peptides. We've been talking about peptides.
Anyway, we're going off here. But
Hey, I think this is funny and it's kind of going back. But this is like a classic statement about like the difference between men and women's beauty. And she says in here, like the quintessential 7-in-1 body wash for men. And it's like, it's so true that you guys are marketed these like easy options for like, this
true.
will clean you, put
condition
perfume on you,
you.
condition you. It will do everything with one drop.
This
For
bar of
us,
soap.
we have to wash our face 3
Sasquatch
times
soap.
with this oil base, this soap base, and then an exfoliator.
Yeah.
And the price tags on those things, Jared, are not
That's
cheap.
true.
Yeah, everything's
That's
like
true.
$30 and above. So
Are not cheap.
For the record, I've never done a 3-in-1 hair body
Red flag.
clone.
If you're a 7-in-1 body washer, dude.
what is it that like Duke Cannon where they have like all the different, do you know what I'm talking about? Like the commercials,
Oh,
like
yeah.
this big gorilla, right?
I
And
do,
he's like,
yeah, like Sasquatch soap for
That's
manly
like
men.
isn't
Oh my
that,
God,
it's a taught
bless.
thing though too
Yeah.
in our society that men need these just the easy thing, and then women. We're just programmed that way. It's marketing.
It's all marketing.
It's all marketing. We're in marketing, so we know it's marketing. Listen to us.
so finding that balance is what I think is what I got out of this.
Definitely.
Because I'm not going to get off the hamster wheel. There's some things that I'm not. There's some things that I
Just
care
not going to
about.
run on it as fast.
Well, this is one
That's
thing
good.
I'm doing.
Come on.
So we just had this new updated dress code, and we can talk about this for a minute. And everybody's like, I have to go out and buy this big long wardrobe. But what I'm in the middle of doing right now is like the Sudoku wardrobe. So you have 3 shirts, 3 bottoms, and 3 like outerwear, and you can make 21 and more outfits by doing that. So you don't have to necessarily to look professional. You don't have to go spend a ton of money.
Do you remember that show, What Not to Wear?
Yeah.
When they get the new wardrobe, they do that. They're like, all right,
do, like,
here are all
capsule.
these pieces, how they all go together. So now you have, they throw out their whole wardrobe and then they're just like, here's 10 pieces, but you can come up with a bunch of different outfits with it.
They brought that show back, and now it's like, because it's 2026, you have to be
PC.
nice to people. And so, they're like, no, actually, we're not going to go through with this. You're perfect the way you are.
Have you noticed like all, and this is totally off topic, but all of those shows have changed. It's like now you're on American Idol and there's no longer Simon Cowell on there. Like
Who's like
ripping you to
hateful and
shreds.
honest, and he's like the best.
All going downhill.
All going downhill. All right.
Okay.
Probably move on.
Chapter 2, the truth about earning more.
This is good.
I thought my biggest takeaway from this book, and you probably have better things highlighted than me, but I didn't highlight a lot. I don't know, because I work somewhere and it's like no one teaches you how to ask for a raise or like actually the right way to get a raise, or if that's like a possible thing. So this was like very eye-opening for me, how to like communicate and also behave in the behavior aspect in your workplace is huge.
One thing she first starts the chapter by talking about the wage gap just between women and men, and women are paid 83 cents on the dollar to what men make, right? So throughout a lifetime, a woman makes that much less than a man. And then it also talked about like when you get into your like later ages in life, like when men are like making at the peak of their career, making the highest income that they can make, women not only they find the biggest gap there. So it's even larger as they get into the older ages. So like if you're a woman working at 65, you're making like way less than 83 cents on the dollar compared to a man who's making. Anyway, so I found that really interesting. Like
It's still
as
very
you
interesting.
age and grow in your career, that gap gets even
bigger.
wider. Yeah. So I found that really interesting.
And not to mention, like, we'll pair it back with last chapter. Not only are women making less, then they are like marketed to buy more, and to spend more than men are.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting because, in a lot of like financial books, they talk a lot about just like saving. And she talks a lot about saving in this book, but it was kind of like, no, you need to earn more. And like, you need to negotiate more for your job. And here's how you're going to do it type of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's not a lot of like books and financial books that talk about like, no, you need to like earn more. You need to negotiate and talk about like when you're applying for jobs and when you're working and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, she even said like, okay, if you haven't gotten a raise, why is it? And she talks about like 5 ways people come to their bosses with problems. And the first one's like, okay, here's the problem, boss. The second way is like, okay, boss, here's the problem and here's a possible solution. And she goes on. And the last one is like, okay, boss, here's a problem that I noticed. This is what I did to solve it. And this is the solution that I came up with. Is this okay with you? And that's how you like become more employable and more valuable in your job, which, you know, I just thought that was very interesting. Like people are always like, well, I haven't gotten a raise in this, or you might feel like you're stagnant in your job. But if you find the solutions and become more valuable in that way, like you're,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's a huge, I love what she talks about in this chapter because there's like different phases and parts of like making yourself the prime person to get a raise. One of them is that. The other one is like what you are perceived as in your company, your value to the company. And I'm just going to say it, you know, are you a personality hire? Like you matter.
Yeah.
You matter because she talks about socializing your wins. And I liked this because a lot of people maybe what you just talked about, they may be someone that's the problem solver and they really are really good at their job, but maybe they aren't social enough or they don't hype themselves up enough to where the entire company maybe is aware of that person. So I just thought this was interesting how she talks about socializing your wins. And it's not to be somebody, I don't want this to come across like I did this and I got this customer and I did this and da-da-da-da-da. But like, it's these subtle ways of saying like, this is what I've done. And you're communicating that value to your company. So it's like a component of everybody else kind of knows maybe this is the next person ranking up. And I never heard anyone talk about that before because a lot of the times I think it's communicated to us that you just need to put your head down and work really hard and someone will see it and they will promote you. Yeah. Well, that's not always true.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is more of a social thing in bigger companies, like to socialize yourself up. Do a good job, but also socialize yourself up.
Yeah.
I liked that.
Yeah. I think that's so good. What else was I going to say about this? I do like the negotiation thing. She talked a little bit about like women are seen as bad negotiators too. So
it's super intimidating.
Right.
I mean, you're not taught that.
No.
I mean, to talk about it from a man's perspective, like and you've owned businesses and this is kind of your first company that you worked for, like as an employee.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes it's just not on the forefront or like it feels like a conflict thing to go to someone and say, I want a raise.
Right.
Right.
Do you feel that way? Because to me, like if I were to go to my boss right now and be like, hey, I think I deserve a raise, like that would be like, I would not do that.
It makes you feel like you're going to get fired.
Yeah.
Like I'll put all cards on the table. You feel ungrateful and like then you down talk yourself like, no.
Well, it's like the equivalent. So like I highlighted this in page 61. So they're talking about how when you're interviewing, a lot of times companies will just kind of like smoke you out or whatever and be like, so what kind of salary are you looking for? And you're like, you know, but she like talks about how like you need to give, like she says this, it's hard to specify a target right now without knowing more about what success looks like in this role. I'd be comfortable landing somewhere between 75 to 85, giving my blah, blah, blah. She talks about being kind of more broad and so that you can negotiate. But I think a lot of times, even like if you're applying for a job, people are afraid of being like, oh, this is where I want to be, because then they think that they're going to be like, nope, we don't want you.
We'll go with the cheapest
And then
option.
if you have a job and you want to negotiate a raise and you're like, hey, you know, I'd like to get a raise and here's why, given what I've done. There's that fear that like they're going to be like, nope, you're done, you know? And I just think people are more intimidated. But I will say, I think men are more bold in doing that because there's been less risk of that. But I do think like in society and in culture, women fear that. Like I do think that there is a culture where women's roles have been a little more, what's the word, like indispensable, where they are like let go, or they're maybe the first one to get the brunt of something. So there in society itself, there is this like maybe more fear with women to negotiate, to stand up for themselves, because women who are a little more like aggressive are seen not as,
They're called the B word instead
yes,
of
they're
like
called the B word. But if I did it, or if a man did it, they're like, wow, they're go-getter, they're strong, blah, blah, blah. But if a woman does it, it's looked completely different. And that's not okay.
Yeah, something came up
Girl
that you
power.
were saying. Power. You brought something like the negotiating thing, like when you are applying for a job, like you ask for a range. But she also talked about like different things you could ask for too in the negotiating, like maybe more days off, and I have never thought of negotiating that. I always go to pay.
Never.
But honestly, what's important to me is time. Like buying my time, right? So I would rather have probably more time off than I would have a raise in some instances, right? And some people might not value that, but
Yeah, it's like looking at all the benefits of a company or the benefits that you get. Like, don't be afraid to ask for those things. And it's like the worst thing I can say to you is no.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
That's true.
It doesn't mean you're a bad person because you asked for a raise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good that she talks about like securing, like talking about market rates, securing other offers. So maybe she's like, it is going to take you a lot of time to apply for jobs and maybe see what somebody else is willing to pay you. And I definitely think we live in a different market than she does. Like she's a Dallas city girl where there's a lot of booming companies and like a lot of opportunities. So I think we're in a different market. But for anybody that's listening, she talks about, taking your time. Like if you really want something and if it's worth it to you to get a raise, go out and get another offer and present that.
Yeah.
And say, this is what these people are willing to pay me. Is there anything you're willing to do to keep me?
Right.
And companies like to keep good employees. It costs way more money to be out that job and go looking for someone and hoping that they're a good employee and are going to stay at least 2 years
Yeah.
to recoup their training costs.
Yeah.
I think people that are employees need to be educated on how companies work too.
Right.
So I think that's great.
I remember like with the coffee company, I had a couple employees that like came to me and like wanted a raise, but they were great employees. So you're like, yeah, like it's still worth it. So, I think from an employer perspective, it's that same thing of like, I know it's going to cost me way more to try to replace this person than give them the
Yeah.
Yeah,
small
you've
raise that
had
they're
that
asking
experience
for.
you have a really great perception of this. Maybe, I don't know if that's what I'm trying to say, but because you've been a boss and an employee.
Yeah. I think that's true too, is, a lot of times people go looking elsewhere and the last thing they want to do is go to their boss. They would rather turn in their resignation because this is a guaranteed thing. Like, oh, this is, I know that they're going to offer me this, but you don't know everything about that company. You don't know their company culture. You don't know, so there's so many things you might not know. But if you would have said, and like you said, brought that to your company's attention and asked for those things before deciding, like, I know it's best for me to leave, then the answer is always no. But you could come back with working in the job that you love. What is that? What quality of life to me means
What
a
value
lot.
is that to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I would rather know for sure I love where I'm at right now, ask for the things that I need rather than leave and go somewhere where it's like, I don't know for sure what that's going to be like, but they're going to pay me more because that might be more sufferable.
And
for me.
I think to an employer's defense, they can't read your mind.
Right.
Too. So like they don't know, maybe you're unhappy with your pay. I mean, we all would obviously love to be making $1 million. That's like the obvious thing. But like if you're working in a place where you make pretty good money and you seem to be a good employee that's happy, don't always expect this company that has 100 employees to be like, I got to look at Jared and say, I bet he's about to leave. I need to give him a raise. You just have to ask for the things that you need.
Right. Chapter 3, knowledge is power. It talks about a lot of how women don't learn about finances. And so compared to their male counterpart, they think that they're not smart when it comes to finances, or they
I love this chapter.
don't really take the time to educate themselves because they go to other people for that knowledge. And I see this, and you had an example of your friends that have done this too, Ashley. Remember we were talking the other day and you're like, yeah, my friend was like asking her boyfriend, or maybe it was, her friend was asking her husband about this, and he really knew about the same level as what she did.
Right. Yeah. I have a friend who was talking about a mortgage and asked her boyfriend, and her boyfriend gave her an answer that was so incorrect. And she kind of just believed him because he was
The guy.
And I was like, yeah, that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
So
just having a little more confidence.
yes, like there's so much to learn. And you have, it's like no simpler than that. There's so much to learn and you can learn it. And so women that kind of have their heads down about money and just expect other people to know it for them.
Right.
Like, obviously I'm going to pay my tax account to know more about taxes than me, but that's a little different than me not knowing like how much money I'm saving a year.
Right.
You know, whatever.
Yeah. Is this a chapter about savings rate?
This is your savings rate.
I love this one.
This one like blew my mind. This is honestly the one that like I think really probably impacted me the most.
I like
'Cause I
this one the
remember we were,
most
like,
too.
Talking about this, I was like, that's crazy. Like to
Yeah,
think
Jared's like
about-
walking on his treadmill. He goes, "What's your savings rate, Ashley?"
I'm like, what's your savings rate? This is mine. But it like really helped me. One, I was like surprised on like how well I was doing according to like how much money I was like making. But there was still like more, like I wasn't hitting the goal that I was like wanting, because she talked about like, you know, if you want to have, you know, 1.2 million by this date, you have to kind of like go backwards. And I've never done that. I think when it comes to like budgeting, you're like, I'm just going to budget this, or I'm going to try to live within my means, like type of thing. But I've never actually thought of like, this is what I want to have when I retire at this age. So I need to kind of
backwards
engineer it so that I know that if I'm making this much money and then with this increase of whatever, I need to save this amount of money every month. I'm like that. I've never done that.
Well, I had never heard of savings rate before.
Like the 4%.
I had never heard of like, what is your savings rate? And unfortunately, I think we do a really bad job about talking about savings. Don't you guys feel like savings is something that everyone's just like, oh, make sure you save your money, your money. It's very vague and broad. And I'm always like, what am I saving for? I'm somebody that I have to really understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I like to know those things. And so this chapter opened my eyes that you have a rate.
Yeah.
And I forget how to calculate it. It's in here, but it's
4%.
It's like, a lot of it is like, what are you setting aside for your future? So what's your what percentage of your 401k are you contribute of your income to your 401k? That's part of your savings rate.
Right.
What to your health savings plan? That's more of a savings rate.
Yeah.
Do the math for what you put into an actual savings account from your paycheck. That's part of your savings rate.
And we were like talking about like saving, like there's smarter ways to save as well. So like, you know, we were even talking like, you know, you have like your 401k, you have like your savings account, you have like stocks, HSAs, those kinds of things. But it's really important to fill your savings account with like an emergency fund that's like 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And then once that's full, start to really put that money in these other accounts.
Yeah. I liked that, you know, she calculate what your expenses are today. Like how much are you spending annually to live? And she said, okay, well, if you continue doing that, account for inflation, this is your end goal number. And this is, so maybe it's like $1.5 million, whatever. You start there. And then how are you going to get there? I mean, you guys just all said this, but like knowing exactly what you need to save and how much you're spending. So say if you make $80,000 a year and you spend $65,000 a year, that gives you $15,000 to save every year. But if you're living on rice and beans and that's not sustainable for the next 40 years to save $15,000 a year, you need to adjust and account for that. So that's not going to be safe for you to spend. So that kind of put that into perspective. Like, you know, there are some years that you like put your nose to the grind and you like save, but there might be other years where things come up where that's impossible for you to do. So making sure you live a lifestyle where this is sustainable to get you where you need to go in 20, 30 years when retirement happens.
Well, and we talk a lot, Jill, about lifestyle creep and how a lot of people adjust their spending to their income. And so if you're constantly like, if you get a raise or make more money and then you just start spending that money, you have to look at the big picture of your finances. You have to look at when you're 65 and retiring, that you don't want to go back to work, because you very well might have to. Yeah, you have to backwards engineer like this big number that you want to live off. And so I'll talk about it. It's like, I learned about this 4% safe withdrawal.
Right.
It's a hard word to say. Right. I had never heard of this before, but basically, whatever you want your life to look like when you're retiring, whatever you want that monthly income to look like, you have to backwards engineer it to figure out what that number is in terms of 4% of an investment account.
Correct.
And so that is so interesting, because you can live off of 4% of your investment accounts.
Yep.
Withdrawal. Because I always thought that too. I thought, well, when you retire, are you just pulling out a lump sum of this investment? Like, are you cashing it out and you put it into a checking account and you just like hope for the best?
Right.
It's like, no, you leave it in there to keep growing, but you're finally drawing from your own money that you've put away for years and years and years, and you can live off of 4% of that, whatever the 4% of it looks like for you.
Right.
Jill's 4% may be $50,000 a month, and she's got to figure out how to do that. Mine might be $10,000 a month when I'm 65. So
Right.
I thought that was so interesting.
I loved it.
One thing I really loved too that I had never really looked at is where the 7 forms of the 7 asset classes when it comes to investment. So it talked about like, it explained what US large cap equities are, what mid cap equities are, what small caps were micro caps. Like, you hear these big words and she explains it in such a clear way that I'm like, okay, this is how you divide and diversify. Where when you hear diversify, you're like, okay, well, I'll have some money in a CD. I'll have some money in investments. I'll have some in bonds or treasuries. Well, this explained it in such a clear way that I actually understood what each one of these asset classes were. So I don't know. I really love this chapter.
I like that she talks about how much money do you need to be, quote, free. And so really that 4% number is just your financial independence number, meaning like I have all my bills paid. But if you're wanting to live, a really beautiful retirement in maybe a more lavish or excess money in retirement, you need to account for that and do that math too. Like maybe, so 4% is kind of your freedom number.
It's good.
I liked when she broke it down in how much you need to save and when your retirement date is. So there's like this big thing right now. It's called FIRE, like financial independence, retire early kind of a thing. And she talked about like, okay, so someone earning $80,000 and saving 10%, it's going to take them 41 years to accumulate their safe withdrawal 4% rate, to save enough in their investments to be able to withdraw that. But hey, let's save 5% more right now. So let's move the 10% save rate up to 15% rate. And that's going to bring it down to 34 years until retirement. So say you're 30 years old. That means you can now, if you save 15% of your income, you can now retire at, 64 years old instead of 70 years old, So she talked about just by adding that little bit of percent, you can retire and bring that down to where the year you actually want to retire is, which was really promising to me. And I'm like, heck, maybe I want to retire in my 50s. I don't know.
Well, I know. And it's sad because I feel like we talk about people retiring in their, like teachers, like if you're like a tier 2 teacher, you don't get to get out of the school system until you're like 67.
Yeah.
I don't want to be working when I'm 67.
Ashley's like, do I have to work when I'm 30?
I don't want to work when I'm 30. Like, but for real, I think these are important things to talk about because you should live your life. And if you have the ability to retire at a certain age and go continue to do jobs that you like and love and travel and do like live your life. Come on.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's a good chapter. I don't know if there's anything else about it. I'm sure there are.
She gives a lot of, and I never know what type of, but she even gives her insight into where she invests. And sometimes you just need somebody to tell you, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Take it as it is. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but like, this is where my money invested and how much of my percent of my portfolios are in this different investment. You can follow mine if you want to. I'm not saying it's great, but this is what it's got done for me. So I kind of liked having an example laid out for me. Wherever you go to, like, sometimes you go to a financial advisor and they're like,
They give you choices.
yeah, or like
just tell
they
me.
don't explain. You're like, just tell me what you think. You know,
Because there's like there's like so much to it.
Like,
yeah.
what is VTSAX, right? What does that mean? Just invest in that and relax.
ETF, and then it's like,
right?
what's an ETF? I don't know.
So she just explained it in a really clear way. Anyway,
You're giving someone money. They're using your money. You're making more money.
yeah, I mean, she literally has a chart where she explains exactly what she did. Like 29% in this, 26% of my investments are in this. So I don't know. I liked that a lot.
It's called knowledge is power. And so I encourage people to understand all of the avenues of savings and what it's going to be like when you're 50, 60, 65. Put it in Chat GPT. It'll do the math for you.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
The next chapter, we like this topic. It's I thee wed and spend thy bread is the name of the chapter. But this one talks about what you're actually getting into when you get married. And one of the things I really got out of this is the question she gave to like talk about with somebody that you're dating. And this is like before you get into the financial questions, like, hey, where do we want to live, or where do you want to live? What type of home do you want to live in? Like, how often do you want to travel, and where do you want to go? How often do we want to work, and what types of careers are you interested in having? What kind of food do we want to eat? Are we eating out all the time? Are we making at home, food at home? Like, these are all good conversation starters. They're not necessarily about your income.
They're like indirectly about money.
Or your debt.
I love it.
But it's like, what are our lifestyle choices going to be? And that
So Cabo or
save a lot.
Gatlinburg. What is it?
Or even think about this though. And I know you guys are being silly, but like, what about your kids? Like, what kind of education do you want for kids? Are we paying for our kids' education? Like, what are your values about, did your parents pay for your education? Are we going to do that if we have kids? Or do you plan on doing that for having kids? I don't know. I just like, there are questions that.
Well, they're way
like,
better
ooh.
intro questions than saying, can you open your checking account so I can see?
Weird.
Do you have debt? Because a lot of shame is wrapped up in financial conversations with people that maybe aren't doing their best. And I feel like I hear things and know things at the bank because of people just like, you have to talk about it.
Right.
You have to talk about, that is like one of the biggest reasons people get divorced is over financial matters.
Right.
And so spare yourself the divorce by just having these conversations.
These are really good questions.
They're great questions.
I love
really
these
good
questions.
open-ended questions.
Well, and I know I'm laughing about saying these are indirect questions about money, but they really are, because where you live is going to determine how much money you're spending on a house, a car, taxes, what type of home you want to live in. Yeah, that's a money question.
Does it matter to have a big house? Are you happy with like a,
Yeah, because some people want to live a more lavish lifestyle and other people don't.
yeah.
So really great questions to ask somebody.
Yeah. And then she got into the deeper questions too, like what outstanding debt do you hold?
These
What
are paragraphs questions.
Oh yeah. What loans are currently open in your name? But that's what you need to know before you get married, because like she says in here, you are tied to every one of these things. Once you're married, those are yours. Like that becomes either marital assets or your marital debt that you're taking on. So
I think what's scary and why people need to ask these questions is because there's no one telling you that somebody has debt or has a credit card open with this racked up on it. There's, President Trump isn't before you tie the knot like, and these are all of the things about them. Are you still wanting to go forward with it? Like a lot of people find these stuff out after you tie the knot, when it's then your marital property.
One thing, another question, she's like, do you have any prior bankruptcy filings? Like I wouldn't have even thought to ask somebody about their bankruptcy filings, but people do, and they have that, and they might be doing fine now, but like that's on your record for how many years, 7 or 9 years, I forget which one, but I mean, holy smokes, things like that.
I love she just goes for the jugular. What's your credit score range? It's a great first date question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite color? What's your credit score?
Is it above 700? Is it green, yellow? Where are you at?
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how many people shy away from this stuff or just think that everybody has a good financial situation, because your assumption could be like, oh, they would just tell me if something was
Right.
bad. No, they don't.
Or how about this question? She asks, what sources of income do you rely on? Like, are you getting paid that well at your job, or are your parents bankrolling your lifestyle?
That's
you know what I
good.
mean? Like, holy smokes, like if you're expecting them to continue doing that for the rest of your life, that's, you know, something different than you're doing that.
On your own, or like, what if something happened to the people that were funding your life?
She says this too, and I kind of laughed. Like, will I have to tolerate Bitcoin manifestos every time it experiences a resurgence? So like,
Oh my God, that's like my mom and dad. My mom's like always talking about Bitcoin. My dad's like, your mom's crazy. So yes, Kim eventually
I love it.
likes to talk about Bitcoin.
or like, do you have any other financial obligations I should be aware of so we can plan for them? So if you've
have a
been
kid I don't know
divorced
about.
and you have to pay alimony, or
that's
your
true.
family member that
good.
you're taking care of and you're supporting them, or child support from past relationships. I don't know.
It's even like, do you have there's so many different kinds of debts. Like I think about college debt. Or do you have student loans?
Right.
Gotta ask if someone has student loans. Do you have medical debt?
Did you co-sign a loan?
Have you co-signed a loan?
Right.
Do you have debt on your car?
That's a good one.
Then she gets into the prenuptial agreement, and that was a lot of good stuff too. Things I didn't think about, like having separate property and keeping it separate, and how to account for that. Like, this is one thing I got out of it, and we talked about this on the way over here. It's like an attorney she talked to, she said, before you get married, you have your individual accounts. When you get married, you can open a new individual account, and then you can also have a joint account. So everything that was in the account before you're married that was in your name is your property. When you get married and you have your individual account, that individual account is actual marital property. So anything that deposited into there is now marital property. So keeping those things separate, if you have a prenuptial agreement, it will say that's how people get in trouble, is if they have this individual account before they're married and then they continue putting money into it after they're married. That's now commingled money. It's really hard to separate that should you have to get a divorce. So having an individual account before, a new, and keeping that other one. I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
My thing though is like, if you had this individual account before marriage, so you're just saying never add to it again?
Yes.
So eventually it would just run out then.
I mean, you
If
can
you used it.
You can use it. I mean, you can move it. You can do things, but you can't add to it. Just like if you have a 401k from a past employer, right? You can't add to that old one, but you can roll it. I don't know. I just think she just talks about keeping it separate, because that is your before marriage money. Anything you put into it, now it's all messy. She talked about like a Mountain Dew with like milk. Do you remember hearing?
Yes, yes,
She's
yes.
like, okay, so now you pour Mountain Dew with milk, and now it's this yucky combination. You can't tell what is what.
Yeah.
So if you keep it completely separate in different accounts, then it's black and white.
The prenup stuff was a little over my head, but what I got from it is both parties, before you get married, if you're going to do a prenup, both of you need to have your own attorney representing you, and you need to negotiate and take a step back and come back, because if it is something that happens fast or is like seems like it was just like what did she call it, Jill, in the book? Like if they go to get divorced and the judge looks at it and is like, what were you thinking when you made this prenup?
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff can be like void in law, or void in courts, if you will.
I think the three things were, like you said, each spouse is individually represented, and there needs to be adequate negotiation regarding how things are split, so it can't be really one-sided.
Yeah. Something like that.
And then adequate time, so you can't like spring a prenup on like a week before the wedding. There has to be ample time for them to negotiate.
Right.
Because I feel like that's happened a lot of times, and women or get themselves, or whichever person has, maybe more assets going into a relationship, their family might pressure them, and then it's like, wait. I still want to marry you, so I'll sign whatever. but it's almost like coercion, right? Like,
Yeah, so I didn't know that the judge can say, I know this is your prenup, but I'm not basically,
yeah.
we're gonna fight to the death with this one. These attorneys are about to make a bunch of money.
A lot of money out of you.
Oh, besides the prenup, she talked a little bit about postnups and things that need to happen. She also talked about like big weddings and how like the conspiracy theories like I have about weddings.
Yeah.
And
I like the wedding one because it's like, yeah, this stuff just keeps getting so much more expensive. And like for me, if I thought a wedding cost $30,000, or I could keep the $30,000 and like invest it or do whatever, or maybe get a new car or something, like to me, that just seems it's a personal preference though that she talks about in this book. It's a personal preference on whether you want to like go crazy and have the biggest wedding of your life or not. That's good.
She just talks like, not only are you imposing the expenses on yourself, but like think of all the bridesmaids and expenses and like how you're asking so much of these people to
been there, done that
for
thousands.
these big weddings,
And all
gifts.
that stuff.
One thing she talked about when it talked about, because I don't really get the point of postnups. Like, I mean, they're not as enforceable as a prenup, whatever.
Oh, really?
But one thing she said that was really interesting is you do them when there's a big change or life change. She said like someone's choosing to give up their career. So like, why would someone go into a postnup? You know, all of a sudden it would be because, hey, one of you agrees to stay home with the kids. Now we need to see how like things are still going to continue to be equal when you're giving up your time in work, Social Security, all that stuff.
Yeah. If you want to learn more about kind of stay-at-home parents, we have a really good episode with Anna Goff. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she just talks about all the financial conversations and things you need to do if that is the route you are going to take to protect yourself. So I thought that was really great.
She kind of ends this chapter by saying financial autonomy, organization, and respect within marriage aren't just good for your financial outcomes. They also bode well statistically for your marriage outcomes. So like most likely to end up continuing a strong, healthy relationship if you abide by these things.
I believe it.
Yeah.
It's just like good knowing in the back of your mind that you're going to be like taken care of, or you have a plan. You know what I mean? If something happens.
Yeah. Well,
her story is like,
I've
crazy.
said this on that other podcast. It's like everyone, and I think she says this in the book, but it's like, just because you buy an insurance policy on your house doesn't mean you are expecting or want your house to burn down or get caught up in a tornado. It's to protect it.
Yeah.
And so people have these bad views of prenups or postnups. And like, I do think it's another thing in our society we should really start talking about more and shedding new light to it, because it gets a bad rap.
Yeah. Destigmatizing all that.
Yeah.
I don't like that it's like, and like it is an option, you know, like it should be not an option.
That's what she talks about. That's what Anna Goff talks about, is like if you're getting divorced, someone's deciding where your stuff goes. So why don't you want it to be you in your right mind?
Right.
Yeah. And when she says in the book, she's like, what better time than when you're in love and experiencing the most happiest time in your relationship to say that, hey, if something were to happen between us, like people are human, if something were to happen to you, this is how I think you should be taken care of for your life.
Absolutely.
You know, like, yeah. What greater gift, man. Next chapter talks about every mom is a working mom.
She cracks me up because she's like, I don't have children yet, so obviously I'm an expert about talking about this.
She used this example about like how she's on this airplane. The girl she sat next to, like the mom is on one side of her, and then the dad is over there with the older, like more relaxed or easy to care for child. And the mom's got like the infant who's like fussy and squirmy,
Crawling
and
everywhere.
like how the mom is like, yeah, he helps. And then like how the husband's like a helper, the dad is a helper. I thought that was interesting. You know, it's viewed as like the husband helps out, but we're really they're parent too. So why do we say, oh, this is you're helping with the
50
kid?
DNA.
Yeah. But it's actually their responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. She also said, you know, when it comes to having help, other countries have social safety nets, and the U.S. has women. You know, they say that the women do the helping work or the take the responsibility of.
Yeah, it's definitely our culture for like more of the women to stay home or take care of the kids, even if the woman works too, the same amount of hours.
That's probably why we see such a huge like difference, like you were talking about earlier in the episode about like that percentage. You said like 83 cents to the dollar, and then it's a lot more the older they get, probably because most women end up staying home or
They may be
have
out
to
of the
take off
workplace,
more
yeah.
for a while, and so then it kind of, some of them are like reset, so they're doing like entry level jobs and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's probably a lot of reason, just cultural society is like put that pressure on women to stay home.
She talked about this author of the book. She was like a stay-at-home homemaker. She wrote this book about how great it was, and like that was, really great. And then a few years later, she wrote this book. So her husband, at like 55, asked for a divorce. This is after she wrote this book. She's like, he asked me for a divorce. I had been out of the workplace my entire life. I was essentially unemployable. And she wrote another book, and she said the title of the book was like, "Forget the last book. This is what it's like,"
Oh, yeah.
So she like rewrote her book, and she's
Yeah.
like, "This is what it's actually like when you go through divorce and you thought you had it all together, and
my
then
gosh.
like your life blows up." Right. This is a good quote I highlighted. She said, "While the average employed man spends 57 more minutes per day doing paid work than the average employed woman, the average employed woman spends about 1 hour and 10 minutes more unpaid household and caretaking labor per day." So while the men's spending that hour doing, like working late on what he's getting paid to do, the women's spending like taking the responsibility of the homework and doing the hour and 10 minutes more of that work. So just
Interesting comparisons.
I also thought it was very interesting. She said the U.S.'s approach to care work emphasizes the nuclear family, so treats child rearing and elder care like a private personal matter to be sorted by the individual person or parent, as opposed to a public good that benefits all society. So like in other cultures, this is a universal need. Other cultures have that. Like it talks about the Sweden pays a higher tax rate than we do, but nearly 3 in 5 American parents spend 20% or more of their household income on childcare. So would you rather have like the social program to help with childcare, like the Sweden does, and pay more in taxes, or pay individually 20% more of your income to do it individually, which,
Yeah, I don't know.
I would rather pay 1% more in tax than 20% of my income. Just saying.
Yeah.
Personally. And it's very easy to, like, a tax increase to expand the public school system to include daycare would have enormous effect than what we have going on now.
Well, I think like once again, I say this, we talked about this before about how much daycare costs here in America.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, what did your friends spend on daycare? And like took 2 years to apply for daycare
Yeah, to even get into that daycare. Yeah.
so that she could go back to work.
Yeah.
It's like $14,000 a year for just like one kid. That's crazy.
Not even, yeah, way more than that. That's like on average.
That's like a rural-
low
that's a
end.
rural
That's
area.
around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so wild.
Oh no. She says, and I feel like everything I've said is very like feministic. But this is something else I highlighted. When cultural attitudes dictate that women are society's natural primary caregiver, not only is their paid labor less valued, but the attitude directly enables a complete dearth of public support for families. So why do you need childcare or paid family leave if a woman's natural role is a full-time mother? I feel like there's not been a stress because majority of it has fallen to the women when there's men in the office.
Well, I do think this just correlates back with, once again, the other chapters. Like, if you are someone that's wanting to stay home, then if you kind of don't have these prenups in place or something, it's like, it's almost like a lot of the times a stay-at-home mom's in-house work doesn't get like a dollar amount value.
Yeah, there was a previous episode we kind of talked about that. Like, if you pay somebody to do your laundry, you pay someone to clean your house,
Cook.
you pay someone to cook, like
Take care of the kid.
what's
Add
the
it up.
cost involved in that? If you actually hired somebody outside
Yeah,
to
and
come
then
in,
put that in your prenup and say, that's what I get
that
paid.
puts a little more perspective in things, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So she goes on to say, yeah, this is the main problem. We can't fix it like that, and
No.
we can't legislate it yet. But here's some things you can do to mitigate that and start saving for this ahead of time. So she talks about like even before you have a kid, you should be starting to save at least $10,000 a year and investing that
Wow.
per kid that you want. So I don't know. That was a good eye opener. I'm like, I've never even thought about saving for kids I've never had.
10 grand to
But I
little
mean,
Timmy. I
actually-
don't know about that.
You could start saving right now. If
That's
you
a
plan to
lot of
have
money.
kids.
I'm still on that hot
is
girl
a lot.
hamster wheel.
Still on
That's
the
where my 10
road.
grand's going.
Real.
I'm back on chapter 1. No, I think that's a really good point, Jill.
Yeah, to account for
I wonder how many
childcare.
people actually save before they have kids for kids.
Here's the deal. Everyone always says it doesn't matter how much money you've saved. These kids are so expensive.
Yeah.
Christine, you should get her on your tongue. She's like, Aiden went to the gas station. He swiped my debit card 3 times. Like, never going to be enough money. Always going to be enough love. So
Man.
Chapter 6, don't outlive your assets. This is my biggest eye-opener chapter.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, was it good. So she talks about that fire again, like that financial
Retiring early,
independence,
yeah.
retire early. And she talks, I learned a lot in this, but she goes through a whole scenario about her being an individual making this amount of money and being married, and goes through each example. And oh my gosh, my eyes were open on what I'm doing investment-wise and what I could be doing.
Well, it teaches you how strategic you could be to, well, this is what we were talking about in the car, Jill, is I said, I have friends, I feel like, are people that I know that just leave it up to chance to retire early or retire rich or be retired when they're 50, and they have no concept of like the avenues to get there and just think that something's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
So I liked this chapter, and I liked all of the things she talks about. And I learned a lot about IRAs and Roth IRAs and things that
Yeah.
It's good.
I already knew a
talked
little
lot
bit about
it
those
the other
things.
day about, because we're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because you can only put a certain amount in, and some investment funds they're just all different, you know?
Yeah. She talked about having her 3 buckets. So like your 401k, and then doing a Roth or traditional IRA, and then your brokerage accounts. And I thought it was really interesting because I've always thought like Roth IRAs are the best. Like Roth is the way to go because you put in the money that's already taken out taxes, and then you get to keep the gains and all of them. You don't pay any taxes when you withdraw. So I thought that was like the way to go. But she talks about like how it could be really beneficial to put your money in a traditional IRA. And so for that year, you get a tax deduction. So she uses this example of like, say you make $80,000 a year, and you put $7,000 into your traditional IRA. Well, instead of, you get a deduction that year on your taxes. So you would really only claim like $73,000 as income. So instead of like taking that money and spending that extra money that you didn't have to account for, she would invest that in her brokerage account. So that $7,000 would have gone into a brokerage account. And then so she's investing twice in her traditional IRA. The tax deduction goes straight into her brokerage account, which I'm like, wow. Yeah, then you have more flexibility on that brokerage money that you're earning interest on. So
I think a big misconception a lot of people have is like, you can maybe only have one investment account, or like the one at work that's it for you. Like if you just invest into that, you'll be okay. But yeah, she really breaks it down that you can have multiple avenues and strategically fund them to help your tax burden, and then to help you get to that place that you want to retire at, which I'm very big on that. I hate that people think they're going to retire on Social Security or from their 401k that they've, I don't know, some people like even cash out their 401k sometimes. You know what I mean? I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Drives me crazy.
It does.
So one of the biggest things I got from this chapter was learning about a backdoor Roth IRA, which I've heard people toss around that phrase before, but I didn't really know what it meant. So reading this was like really eye-opening to me. So basically there's stipulations on a Roth if you make too much money, you can't directly contribute to a Roth. And a Roth basically means you've already paid taxes on it first. Like Jill said, it grows tax-free. You pull it out tax-free. Woohoo. That's great. We love tax-free. But if you make too much money, this is the way you could take advantage of a Roth. So you could contribute to a traditional IRA, and then you don't
Claim the deduction
on your taxes. And then because of that, you're able to convert it or roll it into the Roth after you've put it in the traditional IRA. It's like so simple, but so confusing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too. She says in here, she's like, I don't know how the
Congress hasn't
changed this yet, but she's like, it's completely legal. So
And it may change
as long
in a
as
few
it's
years.
legal,
We
keep
don't
doing
know.
it.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But that leads me to say another thing she talks about in this chapter is how the benefit, there's so many benefits to investing, and like the tax is so low on these things and capital gains. Like it's just so interesting. The more money you make and the more things you're investing in, it's sometimes like you wonder how billionaires and people that make so much money pay the lowest taxes. Well, the further you are up the ladder with stuff like this, you'll understand. It's really quite enlightening.
Right. I think I got out of this is like, you need to become friends with your accountant or somebody who learn the tax laws and learn how to manipulate your income in ways that benefit you. I mean, she says we live in a capitalistic society, so we might as well take advantage of it and play the game. So and try to get to that 0%, right, of tax. So
I'm going to read this like bullet point when she's talking about capital gains tax. She said, if you as a single person in 2025 have $48,350 or less in total declared income, you won't pay any taxes on your long-term capital gains. That's right, 0%. And so long-term capital gains is over 365 days, 1 year.
1 year.
You'll pay zero tax.
Wow.
If you make that declared income. But I think that's interesting because if you look at average incomes and single people, that's very doable for you to put this money and make money and not pay tax on it.
I
That's
loved
huge.
in this chapter too, where she walks through an entire example of how she would withdraw the money, because that's my biggest thing. You get to retirement age and now what? How are we living off this money that we've invested? I have no idea. And so she walks through step by step what you do with every year. So she goes like, okay, this is where we stand with it after however many years of investing. You know, she's done that save rate, the safe withdrawal rate of 4%. She's saved it, and now what? She's ready to withdraw it. So this is how you do it every year. You take it from this account and you pull it from this account, and I've never seen it done like that. So it was really eye-opening to me. Like I could.
Right. It's like what I said. I'm like, do you just cash all of this out and put it into a checking account and budget?
Yeah.
Right.
How are you going to count on yourself when you're, older? I'm wanting to spend a bunch of money on my grandkids. I won't budget. I'll blow it all.
I'm not budgeting that.
I need someone to pull it up for me slowly. Here you go, Ashley.
That's what I need too.
Yeah.
Kind of out of sight.
Yeah. Pulling the amount out without having to pay as much taxes as possible, or with paying as little taxes on it as possible. So she talks all of that. And I think you have to read this chapter yourself. There's not enough words to explain it. Like she does a really good job of putting charts and graphs.
Yeah, she
and
got a lot of charts on here.
that you just have to read that one yourself. But very good chapter. I learned the most out of that one.
Yeah, that was a good one. Last chapter. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Putting it all together. I think finances are to me, they're like a big puzzle, a big, beautiful puzzle. And when you don't know a lot at first, you never think you're going to get the puzzle done. But once you start putting all the pieces together and it starts to form a picture, you really understand things better and you're able to apply these concepts. So I just encourage people to do the things that she's talking about in these books.
Yeah.
Because they're tried and true. A lot of the stuff she's saying are in many, many, many financial books. And these people are successful and have done it right. So you should do what other people do if they're right.
She's got like a budget wheel in there, and I thought it was really good. It was a little different than I think even like ones that we've seen as far as like the percentages and stuff. But I just love how like overall she talks about like how wealth is not just having more money. It's like having control and freedom and time and like those kinds of things. And just like kind of that reminder of like, that's the kind of wealth that we're like wanting and working for, is not just to have more money.
Yeah.
So I think it's good.
I think to play off of that, Jared, like she talks about how if you're maybe getting stuck financially at a certain point, or something's not working for you, like we need to stop and like backtrack and like figure out because something went wrong. Like if you can't afford a certain something, like you didn't make maybe the right decision. And so kind of backtracking and figuring out what you need to do to move forward with your values. The values are the biggest thing.
Yep, she talked about that a lot too. And then she said like, sometimes we get so rigid, like in how we plan to save. Like some people, she said that she literally goes every month and does her little financial recap where she's like, people might not need to do that. Like quarterly more is probably reasonable for most people, but like your physical, mental, and emotional health and safety all supersede money on the priority list. So if things are suffering in service of a spreadsheet, like it's time to reevaluate.
That's what I was trying to say right here.
Okay. Yeah.
When she says we've officially taken a wrong turn.
Yeah. Yep.
But I loved it. Like I feel like it was honestly kind of affirming, because even like I think in a previous episode that we've done, Joey talked about things that are important to us to spend money on, like traveling or those kinds of things. And like, what do we love and like what has value to us in our life, and like creating that budget around that. Cause I think a lot of times, everyone has different values. And so your budget needs to kind of reflect around that.
Is that the episode you called me cheap on? I wasn't there.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But Jill and I were really in agreement, I think, on that one, so I appreciated it.
Oh,
You too.
I love it.
I also loved that she talks about she talks about everything in the book and kind of recaps all of it. And I really love the investing portion. She talks about putting your investment strategy on autopilot. So we have a lot of things to do with our money all the time. We got to pay bills. We got to go to the grocery store. We got to do all of these things. And so sometimes investing, one of the most important things is something you put on the back burner and you don't do. And time is of the essence here, people. So she talks about how when she was paid and then when she would deduct the 401k contributions before her paycheck, those would come out automatically. And then she had automatic transfers go from her checkings to savings the 5th and the 20th on payday that were for smaller short-term purchases. And then she had an automatic transfer contribution go from checking to her Roth IRA set for the 6th and the 21st, the day after payday. And then finally, she had another automatic transfer go from checking to the taxable brokerage account with an asset allocation designed for a more flexible medium-term goal set for the 7th and the 22nd. And so that may take you a little bit of time depending on when you get paid or how you get paid if you're wanting to go a route like this. But like, to me, that hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. I think she gave a lot of great tools in this chapter. She has this wealth planner that she has that you can pay for, but she also has free tools in here. So I'm excited to dive into that. And she talks about like your quarterly meetings with yourself and what that can look like and other things to consider in these resources. She talked about like resources like your Nordstrom gift cards and things like that you can use instead of, and like your Chase. She brought in points, credit card points and things like that you don't think of typically when you sit down and do a quarterly evaluation. So I thought I got a lot out of that too with that one. So anyway, I thought it was a great book. I enjoyed it.
Yes, I would give it to a friend. I would highly recommend.
Yeah. And now it's highlighted, so they can just read the highlights and get it.
Yeah.
No.
And as a man, I learned a lot. Don't be
afraid to
scared
read
of the
it.
cover, man.
Yeah.
You're funny. Well, our next book club is going to be starting up soon. So if you would like to join us, send us an email marketing. We would love to get the next book for you. We are reading Unreasonable Hospitality. And so it is all about customer service and how in every industry that is the number one thing. And I already started reading it and I am moved. It's really good. And I'm really
excited.
fired up. So you guys are really going to like it too. So
I'm excited, Ashley.
yeah. Well, do you guys have any other other thoughts. We've talked a lot this long episode, so I
It's a
think
really long episode, yeah.
we'll get it wrapped up. So
Okay.
thanks for recapping, guys. And thank you all for listening. We will see you next week. So Jill, where do we go from here?
Be sure to check out our show notes for this episode, and also be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.